I think because I experienced so much loss. I mean, I'm just realizing this now when I'm talking to you.
There you go. Hey.
It's like, you lose so much. You're like, well, man, has to be, you could learn so much in the losses, right? Losses of, not being highly recruited, but then being recruited, then the suspension at USC, then from the bad game, then from, struggling the first couple of years, and then some triumph for the new contract, but then getting traded, and then going through that, and then failing physicals, and then starting. I learned so much in those depths of those valleys that helps me, now. It helps those war stories.
Welcome to the Matthews Mentality Podcast. I'm sitting here with a longtime friend and teammate. Fight on, baby. USC Trojans. Winston Justice. Winston is a former NFL offensive tackle, played 9 seasons in the league, primarily with the Eagles, with my brother Casey. Fly, Eagles, fly. A standout at USC, he was drafted in the second round of the 2006 NFL Draft. After retiring from football, Winston transitioned into a successful career in finance, earning an MBA from George Washington University and becoming a respected financial advisor at AllianceBernstein, very big company. He is also dedicated to philanthropy, focusing on education and mentorship for underprivileged youth. Winston's journey from the NFL to business reflects his resilience and commitment to community impact. Welcome, Winston, to the podcast. Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
How are Trojans going to be this year?
You never know.
Well, we have known for the last 10 years, which is not very good.
Not very good.
So the fact that we don't know this year, I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. We had a pretty good quarterback last year, but now he's with the Bears.
Yeah, Caleb. He was good.
We guess someone else is going to step up to the plate.
Miller Moss.
This is a big year. Well, this is the first year they're in the Big Ten. So
I know, that's exciting. I'm going to go to the Michigan game in September, and that's now that we're both in Trojans in Nashville. Yeah. It's actually quite convenient.
I know. I might join you.
You should.
I know.
Yeah, I'm going to take my son. I'm trying to get my dad to go with us, make a little bonding trip, but go check out the campus. But yeah, that'll be fun.
I don't think USC has ever lost to Michigan, ever in the history.
I'm sure well, I know you and I never did.
I never did.
Yeah. That's what I always tell people. Yeah. I think our record against the SEC was probably 5-0 or 6-0, and against the Big Ten, I mean, it had to be like 12-0, 13-0.
Yeah.
But this is how we become old guys who live in the past. You remember back when we were playing and the alumni would come back. This was right as we were getting good. They'd come back with their Letterman jerseys and all the diamond rings. They're like, well, let me tell you how when we were playing, we didn't lose. And you're like, dude, shut up.
Yeah,
like, I get it. Yeah. Like this, I think we're those guys now.
We are. We're those guys. We're those guys talking about USC heydays.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, hopefully they can bring it back. Our 25th anniversary of our teams is coming up in a couple of years, and the salute to Troy. You going to go back to that?
I'm so old.
Yeah.
Maybe. One thing that's really fascinating is that my kids are more interested in my history than I am. So they want to go back. They want to go back to games. They want to go back to my high school. They want to go back to see where I grew up at. Whereas me, I want to go and do something different.
You want to move forward.
Yeah. Move forward. My kids are like, wait, Dad, tell us a little bit more about your history. Tell us about this. I want to go back to a game. So.
And how old's your oldest?
My oldest is 16.
Is there a desire to go to USC?
Yeah, and no. He's open to any school. He didn't grow up in California. I think growing up in California, especially Southern California, USC is the school.
Yes.
Right? He grew up, he was in Philly, then Indy, then Denver, and then Nashville. USC isn't the school other than a connection with his dad. So. Yeah. Is USC as high on a pedestal? Probably not. He'll look at
as
Auburn.
Opposed to growing up in Long Beach.
Yeah, totally different.
Yeah,
totally different lifestyle.
Yeah. So how'd you get out to Nashville?
And so I came to Nashville because of AllianceBernstein. So I was recruited by AllianceBernstein, and we looked at homes and schools here. And
it's a no-brainer.
Yeah, we thought it was great. I did some rehab here at D1 briefly. Trained here. We played the Titans here, so we didn't have that
physical
much.
rehab.
Physical rehab. Yeah, you're right.
We have a broad audience.
You have to be really careful.
Yeah,
physical rehab.
Let's not make assumptions.
Yeah, rehab for my shoulder. But so we didn't have that much exposure to Nashville, but we looked at homes and schools, and we really liked it.
Yeah, that's great. We've loved it. That meant similar reasons for you. Like if you had to pick a spot to raise a family, at least for us, it was. it checked a lot of the boxes. So as much as you miss the weather in Southern California and going to SC games on Saturday, it's been great. But
I don't miss the taxes.
no, we don't miss the taxes.
Not at all.
Yeah, that I meant well said. Well, you are a financial advisor, so you should know these things.
Yeah, your biggest cost isn't going to be fees. It's going to be taxes.
It's going to be taxes. Yeah. That's right. All right. So talk to me about growing up in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And your parents aren't from there. And
no.
I knew this when you were a couple years behind me at SC, but I remember you showed up. Giant man. He's like 6'6", 310 pounds. Mm-hmm. And well put together when you stepped on campus. But I think I'd heard your parents were from, was it Barbados?
Barbados, yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, how did your parents from Barbados end up in Long Beach?
So they went to New York first, and they went there on vacation, just stayed. And then,
well, hold on. This is like a hot topic. I mean, is that like an illegal immigration thing? Can we say this?
They became citizens though. But they came and they stayed. And then my dad worked with McDonnell Douglas, and I think the story is this because it's really hazy. He had a choice to either go to St. Louis or Long Beach, and McDonnell Douglas had plants in both places.
What did McDonnell Douglas do?
They put together airplanes.
Okay.
And so my dad did that in some capacity, and he chose Long Beach. And so
I feel like that's an easy choice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and that was back in 1980. That's before I was born, like 1982. And he chose Long Beach, went to Long Beach.
And at the time, Southern California had a huge aerospace industry. It kind of got gutted, I think, in the early 90s, kind of to fall.
It did. Yeah, because McDonnell Douglas was bought by Boeing. And then
Boeing's not having the best run right now.
No, they're not. One thing after another.
Yeah.
But back then, they were bought. I mean, McDonnell Douglas was bought. And when it was bought, the big Long Beach plant kind of shut down, and then now it's like a Whole Foods now. If you go there, it's nice, but growing up, it was rougher, And so I think that's leading into the story. So your dad's working at McDonnell Douglas, and they shut down the plant where he worked. They did shut down the plant, and then So I mean, to fully answer your question, I grew up. I grew up poor. But I wasn't as poor as the rest of the kids, right?
Yeah, Well, for the audience, Long Beach is a very big city and has a huge port. But there's some nice areas of Long Beach, and then there's some really tough areas of Long Beach, right?
It's really diverse, and the thing is, if you don't have as much means as other people in Long Beach, you know it. That's like the biggest difference.
Because you're not
like you're surrounded.
Yeah, it's not uniformity where everyone's poor, everyone's wealthy. It's again, to your point, it's a very financially diverse city.
Exactly. So when you have less, and I think that kind of played into kind of like how I view the world now. I mean, I guess everything you do as a kid plays into how you view the world now. Is I always felt like I had less. And I needed to almost prove that I was almost like worthy, and I guess that was embedded in me as like a small kid.
Was that something your dad spoke about? Was not just financial conditions at home or what you should aspire to do, but even conversations you have with him where you're like, "Hey, Dad, how come these kids have all this and we don't?"
No, we didn't really talk about money with my parents. It wasn't something that we talked about. I mean, it's specifically with my dad. Now, I grew up in a very crowded household, so I live with my grandparents too, and cousins, and then aunts and uncles. So it was really crowded, So my grandmother was very, very vocal. My grandfather was very, very vocal about money.
Were they from Barbados?
Barbados too.
Okay.
Yeah, and when people from Barbados visit, they visit for like months.
Yeah.
So it's like they lived there, and I'd stay. I'd
like
stay
a hostel.
Yeah. It was. I didn't really have a room. I'd just stay on couches.
Which became a problem as you grew.
Yeah.
Not a lot of couches fit you.
Yeah. You'll be surprised. You could. Now you'd be sleeping in a nice big soft bed.
You could. Yeah.
But back then I could sleep on. I could slept on anywhere. And like be fine. But my grandparents were very vocal about how much money we did not have. you know, and they're very vocal. But me and my dad, we didn't really talk about wealth or money that often.
And when your
at all.
grandparents were talking about it, did that, in your opinion, did that really sink into you? Like, well, I need to change this?
It really sank in because I didn't want to have that feeling of not having enough.
It was like, okay. I was going to say, was that like a feeling of anxiety of not having enough, or a feeling of desire to have more?
Both. I think I didn't want this. I want this feeling of not having enough to stop. So I start looking for ways for it not to stop. I mean, for it to stop, and then me wanting it to change. I remember having that feeling. One of our first feelings of, I don't want this feeling of not having enough. I don't want to feel this anymore.
Are you brothers and sisters?
I do. So I have a sister. She's older. Then I also grew up with a cousin in the household too, as well, older too. So I was the youngest.
You're the youngest. You're the baby.
Yeah.
Were you babied?
No, I was. So my sister's six years older, and so.
And she's tall, right?
Yeah,
you're
she's tall.
6'6".
Yeah. She's 6'1".
6'1", yeah. So
Yeah.
just tall people.
She's tall. Didn't play any sports.
No?
She could have, but she didn't.
Yeah.
You know. So she was 6 years older. So I wasn't really baby. I was like almost like the first child over again, because we didn't go to high school together. We didn't go to middle school together.
It was almost
So
it was like an aunt. Almost,
yeah, almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's very different.
I have one of those. I have a
Dynamic,
3-year-old and his brother. My first kid, between the first and the fourth, there's 10 years. So my oldest is a boy. He's 13. And my youngest is a boy with 2 girls in between. He's 3. So it's like watching them, like my oldest son, Brody, with my youngest son, Smurf. It's almost like an uncle, like, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Also, the parents are in a different mindset too. I mean,
Way different.
So they had me when I was 30, when they were 32, you know, and then my sister when they were in mid-20s. I mean, as you know, you're a different mindset when you're.
Well, you just don't care as much. With your
different.
first, well, I'll tell you for me, and you have multiple, so you could piggyback on this if you want. It's like your first, like, I'm going to create the perfect person, and they're going to do everything right. And by your fourth, you're like, like, they'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Just keep them alive.
Yeah.
You know, that's basically the game at that point.
And that was me. That was my childhood.
Plus, like my first, if he tracks and gets into good college and good job, I can look at the other 3 and be like, if it doesn't work out for them, it's you. I've established that I do a decent job with the first.
Exactly.
Like, so if it doesn't work out for you, clearly it's choices you made.
Yeah.
No, I'm just joking. Kind of. So what were you like as a kid? Like, how would you describe yourself in terms of just who Winston was, like your mindset towards something, whether it's school, sports?
As a kid, maybe the best question to ask someone, not me, but
if I were to ask your parents, I was like, hey, what was Winston like as a kid?
They would say he was very quiet. He gets really obsessed about things.
Like manic.
Yeah, he gets really obsessed about things, and that's probably it.
Do you know of something or some things that perhaps you were obsessed with as a kid? Like just phases that you might have went through?
Phases. So early on, I really used to like building things.
Sure.
Right. So I really enjoyed Legos and putting together like toy cars, you know?
Yeah.
And I know that sounds really nerdy, but like that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I felt comfortable just by myself.
In your own head.
Because you know what? I grew up with a really bad stutter.
Yeah.
Really, really bad stutter. And you probably still hear it now. And so
no, until now I was not aware.
Yeah. And so there's something I always had to work on. But I always had a struggle communicating verbally.
Were you always big?
No. I was a chubbier kid. I was always chubby, like, rounder. But I didn't really start growing until...
Hey, we're a body positive show, right?
Yeah. But I didn't really start growing until my junior...
Because I was going to ask, did you get picked on? But you're so damn big, I was like, this guy didn't get picked on. But
yeah, I got picked on. Everyone got picked on, though. If someone picks on you, and then then someone picks on you, like you have a choice, like you're gonna fight them in school or like not, and then it's depending on who's watching, right?
Depending on who's watching, depending on how many homies you got. Too,
yeah, no, exactly.
I mean, there was a lot of inputs that went into the equation of like, do I fight this guy or not?
Yeah.
Not to mention what's his size.
Yeah,
I had that problem. I was the smallest guy in my class, so that was the first input. And like typically, I was like, no, he's bigger. I'm not fighting him.
Yeah.
I just got to avoid him. I just got to take it.
Did you grow late?
I grew really late. Yeah. In my freshman, it's funny. I was going over my son, my 13-year-old. He was asking like, Dad, like, when am I? He started growing, but he's like, how big will I get? I was like, I don't know. I mean, your mom's tall. I'm pretty decent size. But I said, in 9th grade, I remember I was like 5'7", 113 pounds, which is tiny.
Yeah.
And my son's in 8th grade, and he's like 5'9", 140. So I was like, you're much bigger than I was, if that means anything. But I have no idea. But I was tiny, and I got picked on mercifully, like. I meant for the last name, like there were guys that just had issues with that. Freckles, like, it was brutal. But we're not here to talk about me, dog.
Yeah, no.
I like how you did that.
Hey,
that was a nice switch up.
Hey, I want to know. Hey,
see that, Zach?
So on that point, I remember to tell you how much I was 5'7" when I was 8th grade, and then I ended up growing like a foot. So
yeah. Hey, Zach, if I ever take a sick day on this podcast, Winston's stepping in for me as host. All right.
Great host.
I'm gonna take a sick day. I'm gonna put out of office message.
Yeah.
We were talking about people who put out of office messages on their work emails, and like we're gonna talk through this, but like we don't do that. But anyway, so you had a stutter. That was probably pretty tough. Did you go to? It's not a tutor. Did you go to
a speech?
Yeah, speech therapist. Excuse me.
I did. So that was actually embarrassing thing actually because I'll be in class and the speech therapist will come and they're provided by the state or county whatever. And
then you had to get pulled out.
I get pulled out and they're like, oh, he's going to the
walk of shame.
Yeah, no, and they did it. I don't think they do this now. But they did it at the worst time. Is like when everyone's quiet, she'll come in and then call my name.
Winston. He was like,
yeah. And so so I did all that time. But I think it was really helpful because it helped me to really think about. I need to think about each word that I say,
which is very valuable and something most people need more of.
So I'm very slow to speak. There's always a little delay because I have to think about it.
And that's not just being a stoic or stoicism.
No, it's not. Yeah. No, it's not. Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, your career as a battle rapper was shut down at an early age. But so you had a stutter. You're poor. You self-described slightly pudgy. Was childhood growing up at Long Beach? Where'd you go to, like elementary, middle? Where'd you go to school?
I went to school, Boros High.
Was that tough?
It was all tough. I mean, I'm comparing it to how my kids are raised now, and it was really different, right? And I guess that's the whole point why you work so hard, why you strive for more, is because you want to provide a better life for your kids. The way I grew up was a lot different.
And the one thing I think about, I agree. The one thing I think about is like in the pursuit of providing them with all the things you didn't have, do you rob them from the one thing you did have, which is adversity?
Yeah. I think
you know where I got that quote?
Where?
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Yeah. He says some pretty awesome things.
Will Smith.
But adversity, as you know, is almost like lifting a weight. If you get through it, you get stronger and stronger. And but you don't really know that until like it's hindsight. Looking back and you're like,
there's a lot of adults who still don't know that clearly.
Yeah. You look back and say, man, that was really hard.
But it's really good for me.
Exactly. And I learned things during that adversity through the hurt, through the rejection, through the skills that now you're in situations you're like, oh, I know how to deal with that because I grew up with a stutter and I was dyslexic and I grew up poor and my parents didn't really push education, and I said get into a lot of fights. Now I know how to deal with some of those feelings and some of those adversities in ways that are beneficial.
And you got some boxing skills now.
Yeah, boxing skills. Yeah.
Oh, I'm bringing that up later. Question for you: what was the racial ethnic makeup of the schools you were going to at the time?
Actually, I think race is actually talked about a lot more now than it did back then. Race is very much an issue now. growing up, Long Beach was one of the most diverse
Yeah.
cities you could be part of. So it was really mixed. The makeup was black, white, Asian.
So it was everything.
It was everything.
Yeah, part of the reason I ask is just wondering. So most of all my teammates, our teammates from Long Beach, specifically Poly, were African American.
Yeah.
So I'm making an assumption about the school you went to, like, oh, is it mostly African American black? And then I was going to ask, like, being from Barbados, did that even within that community make, oh, well, did you have an accent? Like, I don't know. No.
It's different though. I think
Your parents being from
we
Barbados.
were never as tough as this is a total generalization. Is the kids from the West Indies or the Caribbean just wasn't as tough as the other kids. We weren't as tough as or rough as other kids
because you're on island time, man.
It's different than our parents. They came to this country and it was just different. And so my childhood growing up was a little bit different than the rest of the kids that their parents had lineage here in the United States, which is different. It's a different outlook on life. It was just different.
It's a different culture.
Different culture. Now the school I went to was, I think it was like at the time, Poly was like 60% Asian.
Oh,
yeah, it's just happened
just not
to be.
the football team.
The football team was black and like Pacific Islander.
Polynesian.
They're Samoan and Tongan. That was the team, and it's probably 60% black, 40% Polynesian. But even that's a really diverse team.
Yeah, because I remember off the top of my head, obviously Darnell, who I became pretty close with because he was a safety with me. Herschel, I always love Herschel. Manny Wright. Yeah. Manny was hilarious for the time we had him. And you, I'm trying to think, did we have any other Poly guys? I can't remember, but
maybe some afterwards, maybe.
But talk to me about how you end up at Long Beach Poly. Was that just the natural path for you, or was
natural path?
Okay.
I was in the school district. It happened to be a really big football school. I think a lot of situations we're in just happen to be, and how you find success just happen to be the atmosphere that you're in. So I happened to be in the school district of
they were
Long Beach
fantastic team.
And I wasn't a football player.
That was my next question. When did you start playing football?
I was a basketball player, and I thought I was going to be a basketball player, but just no one else thought I was a basketball player. And you need other people to think you're good at the sport to you to excel at it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't happening for me.
Question: were you good at the sport, or is this like?
I thought I was good. I mean, I thought I wasn't the tallest, but I had it. I had a solid shot. I was quick off the dribble. I was growing.
Yeah.
I think my body is more suited for football, but at the time you can tell me that.
Whoever told you to play football, respectfully, that was a good call. So when was the first time you put on the helmet?
My junior year of high school.
High school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah.
I didn't play till 9th grade, which for my family was pretty interesting. But and I'm like, man, that was super late. I wouldn't recommend it. If you're going to play tackle football, play starting in junior high just to get familiar with the collisions, because you don't want to learn in high school. Junior year, okay. How does this happen? How do you say I'm going to go out for football, and I have to hear about like what the first couple days was like?
Yeah, so I was always encouraged to come out by Jerry J. So he was a coach of Long Beach Poly.
Like, what do you see? What do you see you walking through school? Like, dude,
come
on.
He's like, what are you doing? Like, what? Yeah. Like, what are you doing? Like, come out and play.
Yeah,
come out and play. I don't think he just saw a big kid. I don't think he in his mind was like, oh, if this kid come, he'll go to USC. But I just think he saw a big kid.
It safe to assume your parents weren't the biggest football fans?
Parents
right?
didn't know.
Yeah,
I brought my pads home. They're like, what are you doing? Like,
what is that?
Yeah, my mom was like, what are you doing? Yeah.
So this coach kept encouraging you to sign up, and then eventually he said, fine.
Well, as I said, basketball wasn't working out. Other people were getting looks.
Okay.
I was not getting any looks. And
looks you mean for college?
For college,
okay.
Yeah. And I started playing because it was my last-ditch effort to get recognized to go to college.
Oh, okay. So this was like, hey, like maybe I could play football and get a scholarship to go to college, because if not, getting into college, let alone paying for it, would be
it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is my last ditch effort. if I don't do this, I'm going to stay here forever and still be in the same position, being poor and knowing that I'm poor. And so that's not I'm saying that because it's not a good reason to do something in life, right? Because you don't want to be poor, or you don't want to, or you want to better.
I feel like that drives a significant portion of the U.S. and perhaps and don't let me tell you what you're saying. Perhaps what you're saying, and I think to some degree, when you eventually create wealth, you realize it's not everything you thought. There's blessings within that. But I just got done reading a book, Andrew Wilkinson, From Barista to Billionaire, I think it was, and that was his driver. He said he grew up in Vancouver, Canada, and he grew up in a neighborhood where he was it was the richest neighborhood and he was the poorest kid. And he wasn't poor, maybe in the way you were, but he felt poor, and he said, I don't ever want to, like his parents, everything, he was stressing all the time about money and everything, and he's like, I didn't want to grow up like that, and that was his motivation. So,
I totally get it. Yeah, that's it. Now life is more to that. Sure. But I mean, just my simple thinking then was, I didn't want to have to worry about that. I didn't have to worry about like going to a grocery store and only spending an amount of money. I say get only one pair of shoes a year for church, and also for like. And
when you're growing as fast as you were, that's a problem.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want that to happen. So fast forward that's in my subconscious. I was like, this is it, or like I'm going to be, stuck here.
And so
that's why I started playing.
What happens? You go out, you get your pad, you get your helmet. And I'm sure there were a couple of days of a walkthrough, but like, what was it like the first time physical contact? Did that feel foreign? Like,
it was foreign. It was horrible. I didn't grow up watching sports. Especially football. I didn't grow up. You watch football with your dad. You definitely watch football.
I never watched football with my dad. I watched my dad play football. Which is its own trip. But I understand. Yeah, I understand.
So I didn't watch it, and so when I played, I was also in defense, actually. I'm not sure if I was like a rush outside linebacker.
Oh, my God. And, so what were you junior year? Were you 6'4", 6'5"?
I was like 6'3", 6'4",
230,
245.
Yeah, I was going to say you're probably getting big.
Yeah, so I'm getting bigger and bigger. And I remember the first time I came out, and actually, it wasn't camp. It was during the season. All right, I come out. And
your junior year?
Yeah, junior year. And I remember
you held out?
Yeah. So I was waiting for a contract.
You held out for better grades. You said, all right, you give me straight A's, I'll come out and play football.
And I remember like someone blocking me falling on the ground. I was being pancaked, right? I'm looking back, I'm being pancaked. And I was like, this is football, And so I'm saying cool. it was a really big curve.
Oh my gosh. All right, I'm going to tell you something. I just brought this up to my wife, like everyone assumes, because I grew up in the Matthews family. Like we sat around playing football. I never watched a football game with my dad, and I watched him play football from the stands as a kid. But we never once watched a football game in our house, ever, unless he was on the TV and it was a away game. Yeah. I never watched a college football game until I played in a college football game. I'd never been to a college football game. And it was so bad, my dad retired when I was 16. I was a sophomore in high school. And he comes out to volunteer coach because he wanted to help the team, but be around his son. And I was like an outside rush linebacker DN, and my dad goes, "We're in this drill." It was like one of the first days. He goes, "All right, get in a 3-point stance." And my 2 feet are in the ground, and I put my right hand down, and I put 3 fingers on the ground. Yeah. Then he goes, "All right, get in a 4-point stance," and I put 4 fingers on the ground. And he goes, "What are you doing?" Yeah. I was like. He's like, I said a 4-point stance. I looked at it, I was like, Dad, I don't know what that is. He goes, it's both hands on the. Yeah. That was my knowledge of football up to my sophomore year of high school. Yeah. That's how bad it was.
I totally get that. I mean,
it's crazy.
I
played soccer.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
That's an awesome sport.
Yeah. Loved it.
I didn't talk about football with my son. I still really don't now. I mean, he's a quarterback. Unless he specifically comes and asks, "Hey, Dad, help me with this," which he doesn't do.
Yeah, he's a teenager.
Yeah, he thinks he knows best.
They'll go to like another coach who, again, I'm not calling anyone out, but like who literally knows almost nothing about football compared to you or me. Yeah. And the coach will tell him something like, "Okay, I got it." Like he'll practice it, and then if we tell him the same thing, they'll be like, "Dad." Yeah. It's just a phase.
One thing that he that he still does, and I did when I was younger too, is he really works at it. Meaning that like he'll go home and he'll throw the ball when no one's looking. He'll go out and he'll jump rope. He'll go out and lift. And that's one thing I did. Right? I don't think I was the best athlete, but I really wanted change, so I really had to work at it. Like I jumped rope, I lifted weights. We didn't have like a weight program back then. I'm not sure if you did in your high school.
No,
there wasn't any weights. Like we didn't have like
maybe some bench press.
Yeah, like no one really did that. But like I realized, hey, I need to get strong because I wasn't that strong. I mean, I was getting pancaked when I was, you know.
And so throughout your junior year, did you get better, or was it just you were trying to survive out there?
I was trying to survive. But I ended up playing the last 3 games in the playoffs my junior season.
And was it at this D end or was it at offensive tackle? Had you been moved?
It was both.
Then? Okay.
And I started to kind of like not do bad, you know, but still wasn't great. It was, and actually it's I remember after my junior season, I was like, man, this isn't gonna work out at all. Like I should just go back to basketball.
Basketball.
Yeah.
Who did you guys get to the championship your junior year?
We did, and we won.
Oh, you won. Who'd you
won.
play?
We beat Loyola.
Because the previous years, my boy Matt Grudegood, he took it to you guys.
This is right after Matt Grudegood. This is like, so my junior year, Matt was already at USC.
He was at SC with me.
Yeah.
We were in the same class. We were roommates pretty much all of college. Yeah. But yeah, there wasn't a lot of highlights.
He was a legend.
He's a legend.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was great. But modern day and Grudegood took it to Poly in the championship game. That was cool.
So we won after that.
Yeah. All right. So you're heading into your senior year. You were thinking maybe I need to go to basketball. Like what within your mindset like kept you saying, okay, I'm going to continue to focus on football, get bigger, stronger, faster?
I went to this Nike combine camp, and I wasn't invited, but I
Is that SC?
Yeah, SC. It was it was in San Diego State, but it was
but it was a Nike camp.
It was a Nike camp, and I remember calling. I wasn't at my junior year. I wasn't like a highly recruited player, but with other players that were. You had Darnell, you had Manuel Wright, you had Herschel Dennis, Mercedes Lewis. You had some other people that were a year after us.
That's right.
And they were all invited, and they had a pamphlet, and I called the Nike number, and I forgot the gentleman's name, and I called to say if I could come, and they let me go. And I ended up doing really well there.
At offensive tackle?
At offensive tackle. It was like a D-line offensive tackle, lineman.
Yeah, big man camp. Yeah.
And but that all positions there, And then
that's one where the coaches will be there, but they can't talk to you. Is that what it is?
It's the reason why I went there because it said scouts. It said scouts there. Yeah. I was like, all right, this is it. All right. So I went there. I think there was some scouts there, but they were Nike coaches. They weren't like or helpers. I'm not sure if the coach or not. And then after that, I went to a UCLA like summer camp too,
where they host their own.
They host their own.
Okay.
And then I was. They invited us to tour the school, and I remember I brought my parents, and because up until that point, I wasn't really that good at school, and I didn't really do anything that was notable, like good grades or honor roll. Didn't happen. And I brought my parents because, hey, this is like something good. Like I get to be proud. Yeah. My parents were, not together at the time. But so I was like, hey, they'll be together and it'd be great. And so I'm walking around the school with my head high. And I remember at the time, Bob Toledo, his assistant came to us and said, hey, the coach wants to talk to you. And I was like, well, I wonder why. And then my dad looked at me like, his look was like,
what did you do?
Did you steal something?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I was like, well, no, I don't know. I mean, so we go there and he offers me a full scholarship.
Do the best acting job you can. Bob Toledo. No, I know Bob. He's a family friend. He's a great guy, great coach. What happens? He's at his desk. He's at his desk. Down.
We sit there. It was I'm here. I think my mom's in the middle. My dad's at the other end, and we're talking.
And you really don't know what's happening.
Don't know, and we're trying to figure out what he's trying to say. I could tell my dad. We're really skeptical. We're naturally a skeptical family. Like what does this guy want?
Well,
And
a lot of immigrants just, that's pretty normal.
And he said, I'm going to offer your son a full scholarship. And the look on my dad's face was like, why would you do that? But he didn't say that.
Yeah.
He didn't say that because he was like, okay, we're really going to, hold one over on him. Like, he doesn't know what he's doing. And the look on his face, though, was of shock. Like, why would you ever offer anyone, let alone my son, a scholarship, And afterwards, he's like, man, you need to, like, take this, like,
right now.
before he changes his mind.
Yeah.
Like, where do we sign?
Hold on. That is funny.
Yeah.
What was going through your mind? Like, were you just like, I'm sorry, come again?
Yeah. There
was no inclination. There was no, like,
None.
your coach. Because a lot of time coaches like, hey, you should go because they want to talk to you and just heads
No.
up. Like,
No, it wasn't. I remember saying I was extremely grateful because I thought it was an awesome opportunity. Now, I didn't like commit or anything like that because I was like, well,
why not?
I was like, well, because
UCLA, it just pains me because I can't stand UCLA.
Yeah.
There's other programs we were rivals with where I'm like, oh, but I could UCLA. But at the time, well, first of all, it was a great school, but at the time, they were the program.
they were they were better than, at the time, they're
SC?
better than SC.
I think this was right around the time Hackett got fired and Carroll was getting hired.
Yeah, it was around the same
yeah.
time. And I didn't do it because I didn't start my senior year yet. And I was like, well, maybe there's an opportunity here. Maybe, even if I do commit, you could decommit. Like, it didn't, I didn't understand the whole
but
thing.
it wasn't a thing back then. To
Yeah.
decommit, it was like, it was like almost nobody did that.
Yeah.
Now it's like, it's just show me the bag, right?
Yeah.
And was there a specific school you were like, well, if UCLA offers me, maybe this school will offer me, or no? You just
No. No. Now, again, growing up in California, still, even though UCLA was a better record, right?
SC was a school.
USC was still a school.
Yeah,
USC was still
it's just
had an underlying Southern California, like, that's the school you go to.
Yeah. And I feel like, again, I'm so biased. I feel like everybody's like, they'll figure it out. Like, they're not going to be bad forever. Kind of like what we're telling ourselves today. But.
Yeah. Well, and then soon after that, I met Pete Carroll and Aldron because that's who recruited the Long Beach Poly area.
All right. So I just texted Coach O the other day. Tell me about that. Was this right after the UCLA meeting?
It was really recently after. I don't remember the first time we actually met, but I knew it was around the same time.
Where was it?
I think they came to practice, but then they came to the house as well, and then we went there.
To USC.
To USC. And then I probably went to a USC camp too as well, just like the UCLA one.
Yeah,
But I think the UCLA one was it was way before the USC one.
Okay.
And so the difference between Pete Carroll and Bob Toledo was Pete Carroll had I'm not saying that Bob Toledo didn't have this, but Pete Carroll really had a sense of urgency that he was going he's going somewhere, you know. Bob Toledo was going somewhere too, but Pete Carroll almost was. It felt like
you felt something.
I felt like let's go. Like, come on, let's go.
Effective leader.
Yeah.
Like, this guy has a vision and I can get behind it.
Exactly. Yeah. And so I felt like, man, he's a sense of urgency. Like, I like that. Like, he's going there, and I want to do that too. And then Ogeron came in, and he's always urgent.
What was Coach O like? Winston, now I'm gonna walk you through something, okay?
Yeah.
And you're not gonna be able to say no.
Yeah. And he was tough, but
tough is that is a very polite.
But
way
he was tough, but compassionate at the same time. Like, you could tell that he cared about you, even though the way he said it was harsh, but he cared about you.
His message was great. His delivery was intense.
Delivery was intense.
I had a great relationship with him. He always liked me. Being liked by Coach O didn't mean, there were times like he chewed into me in a way nobody could, but I always felt I had favored son status, and he'd just say, well, because you're one of the tough guys, and I like tough guys, and I didn't have the talent like a Darnell had or someone, but I think he appreciated that what I had, I just gave it everything, and so Coach, I had the best experience with him, but yeah, sometimes, especially if he sensed weakness in one of our teammates, it was just like, oh man, I mean, he would grind you to dust and get you out of the program.
Oh yeah, he would. He would definitely do that. And weakness he knew weakness. It wasn't like you just don't talk and then you're weak, or he knew. But you were a tough guy though. Like you would fight people in practice.
I'd fight all the time.
You'll fight you in practice.
Zach, we're gonna have to cut this.
Like if you didn't feel like fighting, like just don't, like you just, you wouldn't try to block you, or like hold. They're like, this guy's gonna try to fight me, and I don't feel like fighting it right now. You and like Lofa would fight.
Me and Loaf. That's why we're buddies. It's funny. I tell you a funny Reggie story. I was a senior. He was a freshman, and I would have done this anyway, but especially a freshman. Like, don't disrespect me. And we're coming down, and I'm coming on some flash safety blitz, and he's coming up. And again, no freshman knows how to pass block. Lendell was actually pretty good, but no freshman. And I just, I gave him a little shake and just pushed him right back in the liner. I kind of like pointed in his face, laughed, and I turned my back on him to walk back to the huddle, and he comes and pushes me as hard as he can. And I turned around, I was like, oh, no fucking way you just did that. And I kind of like did this, and I came with like the biggest overhand right. Now, we had helmets on, which is stupid, but I hit him so hard. And it started a huge brawl. I got kicked out of practice. They didn't kick him out, of course, because even as a freshman, he was so damn good. He was one of my favorite teammates ever. But every time I see Reggie, I haven't seen him in a while, but he knows.
He knows.
He knows. Well, now I wouldn't mess with him. I'm old, and I wouldn't even know what to do. But yeah, I remember going against you, and you had this way about you where you would hit with your head. Most other linemen would hit with their hands, and you would come out and you'd hit with your head. That's probably why you wore that like big cowboy collar.
Yeah,
I remember this.
Yeah,
and so I remember thinking, this fucking piece of shit. So I was like, you want to hit with your head? So I started like smacking back, and because I was like, I'm just going to stun him first. But that was always fun. I mean, I'm tangenting here, but SC, we had so much talent, and that's one thing. And Pete stocked it with guys like you and Coach O. But more than that, it wasn't just the talent, it was the pace and the intensity of practices where we just iron sharpens iron. You're going so hard, so fast in practice that when the game comes, it's not that it was easy, but a lot of times especially for guys like you who had that ability, that's why we just mopped everyone up. But Coach O, he recruited you, Pete Carroll. Your senior year, you had a good senior year?
It was good. Yeah, it was good. Got through my senior year.
Why are you smiling?
No, it was a good. It was good. And we ended up winning that year. We won. I forgot who we beat. No, we beat Esperanza, I think, in the championship. And then
I just remember, was this your senior year? I remember there was this build-up. I have a crazy memory, right?
Yeah.
And it was Long Beach Poly and the Fab Four. Is that what they called you guys? The Fab Five, because Mercedes, who ended up playing with my brother in Green Bay, who was a fantastic player, versus De La Salle.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that?
I remember that, yeah.
They hadn't lost in like 8 years. And it was like this team from Southern California that had all the talent versus the program of De La Salle, where they had one player that I remember who was fantastic, DJ Williams, a linebacker maybe.
No, they had DJ left. He wasn't
left.
there. It was the running back.
Oh, Maurice Jones-Drew.
Who
also was unfortunately a fantastic player. Went to UCLA and just a great player. Just crazy to look at because he was so small, but
he was small.
Couldn't tackle. Like his legs were the size of my body, right? And I think they won.
They won. They made a movie about it.
But it was a battle.
It was I think we lost by 2 touchdowns.
Oh, really?
It was they were better coached than us. I think we had better talent. Maurice Jones-Drew had an awesome game. He didn't even start that game. I think the running back that was in front of him got hurt. And I could be totally wrong.
No, you're probably right.
Yeah, because he was a junior. He wasn't a senior.
Yeah, he was good.
Yeah.
He was good.
Yeah, that was that game. It was the first televised, I think,
Maybe that's
high
what
school
it
game.
was. But so you have a good senior year, and the recruiting starting to pick up.
The recruiting started to pick up. I started getting offers, and then got offered by USC, and ended up going to USC.
What coordination did you have with your teammates on those commitments, or were each of you guys coming to your own conclusion?
It was totally separate.
Yeah,
it was totally separate. I wanted to stay home. I took a trip to Florida and Oregon, and all. I was like, I got off the plane in Florida,
and you're right away like,
so I was like, I can't do this. This isn't, So I decided to stay home, but it wasn't coordinated. I know we have four people that went to USC and then one that went to UCLA.
Yeah.
It wasn't a coordination. It wasn't like a conversation we had. Everyone made their own individual, everyone had their own camps of decision.
All right. Tell me about going to USC, like showing up on campus. How was that adjustment?
USC was really intense, especially coming from a program like Poly. There's a lot more structure. The school was a lot more intense.
Yeah.
It was harder, and so it's harder to make that adjustment. I was blessed because I had really patient coaches. Pete Carroll was extremely patient. He didn't need to give me as much chances as I took, but he was really patient. And also Coach O. I don't think if I went to someplace else, it wouldn't have been as successful because they would have.
Do you mean that as a player, as a student, just in general?
Player, student,
everything.
I didn't. I played tackle a little bit, but not really. They gave me a shot there, so I ended up starting as a freshman. So they gave me an opportunity.
Yeah, I was going to say
do
you
that.
Started as a freshman. I remember that.
Yeah, they gave me an opportunity there. School was tough, not making all my classes, it was.
It's just adjustment.
Yeah, it was adjustment that a lot of coaches don't need to and won't be as patient because they could just go to the next guy. And they were really patient.
What was that first fall camp like?
It was horrible. Because back then you had to do 2-a-days.
Yeah.
It was 2-a-days. It was hard.
My freshman year, we did 3-days.
I heard those stories. I heard them.
And then they had some, not at USC, but they had some people die. And DeVar Darling at Florida State. Then it was like a Corey Stringer at Minnesota, I think the Vikings. And they changed the guidelines. By the time you came in, they had like a mandatory water break every hour. I was like, these kids are soft.
These kids soft, yeah.
I was out there trying to fight you. But it was adjustment.
It was adjustment. It was tough. It was 2-a-days. We did 2-a-days in high school, but it wasn't like
Your
this.
one-on-ones with BKU.
Man,
Kenichi Udezi. He ended up being a first-round pick and was having a good career. He ended up getting what do you have, leukemia? He had a cancer. He's doing great now.
He is, But he was good. I mean, coming in.
He was so strong.
Having a 270-pound defensive end, you're coming in as a freshman offensive tackle. It was tough.
It was tough.
So that first year was tough. But I think, again.
How'd you do your freshman year, in your opinion?
I think they threw me in the fire. I think for that, I think I did good. I think I learned a lot in that year that I still use now. I remember Pete Carroll telling me that there's only opportunities to improve. Right?
Yeah, he was great. He is
so I used every opportunity to get better, and I get that now.
I heard he was back. I just heard this. He's back at SC teaching.
He's teaching.
Yeah, he's doing a class
on what, leadership or what?
Who knows?
Okay.
Who knows with Pete?
Good for him.
Could be body surfing for all I know, but no, probably leadership or something.
I think it was good. He put guys in the right places. He also put coaches in the right place too.
Yeah, we had a great coaching staff. Sark was there.
Yeah.
Kiffin. Obviously, Coach O, Norm Chow was really good.
So he put his players and put his coaches in good positions to succeed.
Yeah. Fast forward a little bit. Was it your sophomore year? You started, of course, freshman year, sophomore. Sophomore year, did you see a big leap in terms of your grading out, your production on the field?
It was a big leap. And then I got stronger. I started. My birthday's late, so I was 17 when I started.
I think I remember that. I was like, this is the biggest 17-year-old I've ever seen.
Yeah, 17, then 18. And so I was getting older. I was getting stronger. You get older. There's a big difference. And there's a big difference between my freshman year and then sophomore year. my freshman year, I was just an athlete playing tackle.
Just getting in the way of people.
That's what you explained it perfectly.
Yeah.
I was getting in the way. And that's what hey, just go block the guy. Just,
Yeah, just get in his way.
Just get in his way.
Get between him and the ball carrier.
Exactly. So if you're a good athlete, you could, but you weren't really playing tackle, right? My sophomore year, that's when I really started playing tackle.
And when they move you to left tackle, because you're right tackle.
I was a right tackle. They moved me to left for a little bit, but then Matt, remember Matt won the starting position.
Liney.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Then,
so that became the
and
blind
then
side.
I moved back to right.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
It was like brief. I went there and then went and then
never pieced that
and
together.
and then went right back.
That's right.
Which is an awesome story.
Yeah.
And, you have Matt Castle too as well, which
Castle.
I still keep in touch with now.
Well, he's a local too. All of us Trojans in Nashville. I mean, we had Carson, Leinert, Castle. I mean, we had a good crew there.
Yeah.
How was? Yeah, I remember. Maybe it was after your sophomore year. I might have been graduating, but you ran into some trouble at SC.
Yeah.
And how, like, you had to take a year off? Mm-hmm. How was that?
It was one of the toughest years of my life.
I mean, how so?
But at the same time, one of the years I learned a lot, right? And that's the only way that I could have got through it. It was tough because when you're at a high level and then you get it all taken away by the choices that you made, a lot of people leave. And I felt you felt lonely, right? And as
Did you ever think about leaving?
Leaving USC?
SC, like just...
Oh, yeah. There's times where I started the box and I thought, hey, maybe I could just do this.
Hold on, time out. All right, so box, the literal art of boxing. Winston told me the story years ago, but so your junior year, you're suspended at SC.
Yeah.
And you got to find something to take the time. And if I remember, like also something to stay in shape, get stronger or whatever, because my guess is you may want to come back and play football. And so you got into boxing.
I got into boxing.
Talk to the audience about your experience as a smoker or something?
So I got into boxing. One, I needed something to fight for, and literally this is fighting, right? And I started.
Was it also getting your angst or anger out or aggravation?
I think subconsciously that was part of it. But I started training with Freddie Roach actually when I was still at USC, and then when I was suspended, I kept going because I couldn't like go to school, and I was like, well, I'm going to do this, and then I started doing smokers when you start fighting amateurs, and it's a way to make some income when I wasn't getting any. Right?
From SC.
Yeah.
So what is being a smoker?
Is when if an amateur fighter needs to practice with someone that's bigger, I'll be that practice person.
And how many is it? How many rounds? How much time?
It depends on who that fighter is, who the trainer is, but it really it's almost like being a practice squad player without the structure and without the contract.
Yeah.
And so you would do certain tendencies, certain moves for a fighter. They'll help the fighter get ready to fight in his fight that he's getting compensated for.
And you did this for the year you were off?
I did that for the year I was off. And then I also lifted too. And I also, try to do my best. And there's times during that year where I didn't think I was going to go back to USC.
Why?
I was upset. I felt like.
Well, I was going to say, like, sometimes we talk on the show about like victim mentality, like, oh, I was wronged. Did you feel that way?
I did. I felt like I was wrong. The school turned their back on me. I felt alone. But looking back on it now, and then I come to realize this too as well, those are all choices that I made. And I have a choice now. I could either accept it, feel like I'm wronged, and I could guess that could take me into my next 40 years, or I can make a choice to come back and get better and use this opportunity to get better.
Was that a conscious conversation you had, or looking back, is that what you were going through?
Both. It was a conscious conversation.
I mean, again, there are a lot of people currently, a lot of it because of messaging, that are being told and or convinced that whatever it is about their life they don't like, it's not their fault, and it's because they're being victimized and somebody's doing something to them. But you, at a very young age, 19 still, you, through decisions that you made, were in a position where you had to take a year off, which is tough, and you decided, nope, this is on me.
Yeah.
It's a big. I don't think at 19 I would have blamed people for sure.
Good to blame.
I blamed everybody.
You know, to be honest, that's what I did. I blamed people. I was like, oh, it was this fault. It was this fault. Wasn't me. I didn't really do anything. But it was.
Was there a moment where you're like, no, it actually was me. I decided to do this or do that.
Yes, there's a point. Yeah. I don't know where I can't give you the exact date, but during that time I was out. I was like, this is me. This is what I chose. I'm going to choose to think about this differently because it's just causing me too much pain doing it the other way. And this way I could choose my pain, right? I could choose to come back, right? Opposed to having it being proposed to me.
And how, serious question, and how much of that had to do with the fact that SC, in theory, didn't need you because they went, 14-0 and smashed Oklahoma and won a national championship again without you?
Yeah.
Is that humbling?
I think that that really cemented that you're not always as important as you think you are. Things will go on without you, for the most part, sometimes.
Yeah.
And so also I learned that you need to cherish the times you do have. You need to cherish the times and make the most out of every opportunity that you have.
What was it like coming back after you're off to SC? Were you welcomed with open arms? Like, what was that return like?
I was welcomed with open arms. I think they did it in the best possible way. I mean, I needed to earn my spot back. When you're gone for a year, I need to come back and earn it back, which I think that was a really big character building opportunity, right? It wasn't just, hey, you're back. Here's everything how it was. Here it goes. Yeah. It was I had to go in there and fight, and I had to win it back. Also, I had to win back the trust of the coaches. Yeah,
I was gonna say, were there moments, and you don't, even if you could remember, you don't have to share them if you don't want, but like where Pete sat you down and gave you some big life lesson, or Coach O or somebody, or
no, I don't think it was one sit down conversation. I think it was a full year of conversations that we had throughout the year.
And you were talking to him while you were off campus?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was an ongoing thing. It wasn't just one thing that was, and that's why I mentioned earlier about the patience. Other coaches just would have I think washed their hands and went to a different school. I probably would have went to transfer to a different school and had that be it. But
especially especially the culture now. But you're saying Pete Carroll?
Yeah, Pete Carroll was really patient and really wanted me to come back and really fought for me to come back.
And he's got such a good way about him, like especially as a mentor, right?
Yeah, and I don't think he would have did that for everyone. Well, maybe, I don't know, but I felt like he really tried to make it work with me, and he did, and he got back. And
do you think that it doesn't have to be either this or that, but do you think that's because of who you were or what he saw in you as a person or as a player or both?
I think a person. I think he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself at that time. And that's also what I think a good leader is seeing something, the potential in the person when the person doesn't even see it. And Ogeron too. I think they both saw something in me that was more than my
abilities.
Yeah, my abilities or my atmosphere or my choices. They're like, hey, he could, he could be something bigger than this. Because
they had just proven I say this with all love and respect in the world, they didn't need you to win. They had just won every game, right?
Yeah.
But you came back, you were welcomed, you earned your spot back, you had a very good junior year. I have to bring up this terrible ending to your career, the Rose Bowl versus, was it Vince
Young? Yeah.
Oh, that's...
Yeah.
Do we even want to talk about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
That was a great game. It's I always say if they played 10 times, they'd win one. They just won the one that mattered.
Yeah, and people talk about that game still. Yeah. I mean, I go around places and people say, "Oh, you played in the game," and I think it's not the outcome we wanted. But that's sports. Sometimes it's not.
That's sports. You could say that.
Sometimes you come up short.
We shouldn't have lost that game, and we probably shouldn't have won the Notre Dame game. So I guess it kind of evens out.
Yeah, we should have won.
What was that like? Sorry, you're on the 1 yard line. Did you know Leinart was going to sneak it?
Yeah, he called quarterback sneak.
Oh,
Yeah.
he did?
Yeah,
I
he
thought-
did. Yeah,
yeah.
It was funny because because they thought they won, and you had
Yeah.
people on the field, like random people just walking around the field.
And you're like, get
And then
off.
we have another play, and we won, and just it was so quiet. That was one of the loudest games I played in.
Yeah, I was right there. I remember when Dwayne caught that pass. It was
Oh,
like
yeah.
4th and 12.
I remember him.
I
Yeah.
was like, okay, I guess this is the end of it.
Yeah.
And Leinart throws it into quarters coverage, a go route, which, as a corner, you really should be bailing, especially if you have two to your side. It was the short side of the field. They should be bailing into quarters. That pass shouldn't work.
Yeah.
And the corner let Dwayne get by, and it was perfect pass, perfect catch, and then we ended up getting it down there. That was awesome. I was at that game, and then unfortunately I was at the Texas game. I had graduated by then. But
Yeah. It was meant to be.
we were pushing them around all game in that Rose Bowl. Just
Yeah.
a couple bad turnovers. I still haven't watched it.
You still haven't watched it?
No.
To be honest, no, I watched the game film. I didn't watch the TV film.
Oh, don't watch.
I
the
never
TV
watched
film.
TV film,
Yeah, the game film's
actually.
silent. It's impersonal.
Yeah.
You're just watching yourself, and
Yeah.
oh man, I had a good block there. Oh,
Yeah.
I missed my cutoff there. Like,
And then to be honest, when it comes on, do you know how they say the greatest games?
yeah.
I don't watch it. I
No,
turn
you
it.
don't watch it. Come on. Like, you're sitting there like, you don't watch it? No, hell no,
I
we
don't watch
It's
it. I don't.
painful.
Yeah, I don't
So
watch
painful.
it. I've never sat down and watched the TV copy of the
Yeah,
game.
don't. You'll have a happy life. All right, so you have this career. After your junior year, you declare early.
Yeah.
What was the process like getting ready for the draft?
You get ready. You start getting ready for the combine.
You knew you wanted
interviews.
to declare. Was that kind of a foregone conclusion, or was it a real decision where you were like, "Gosh, what do I do?"
I wanted to declare.
Yeah. Okay, you were ready.
Yeah. I was ready to go.
How much of that do you think had to do with the money and this kind of going back to your childhood, saying, I need money, I want money, I don't want to be poor, like I don't want to feel this way.
Very much so. I think that's a big part of that decision was driven out of somewhat fear of that and trying to harness that opportunity now. Look, yeah. So I end up declaring for the draft, end up getting ready for the draft. Me coming into with some character issues, I needed to prepare for those interviews and all that, and so I spent a lot of time doing that.
Yeah, how was that? How were the interviews? What was the wildest, probably borderline most inappropriate interview you had?
They weren't that inappropriate.
Really?
Especially they weren't that inappropriate for my background, I guess. Like everyone knew I got in trouble and so they weren't that inappropriate. Like I've heard some like horror stories, but like
could I ask you a
weren't like
question as someone in the professional world like myself? You're technically interviewing for a job, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you ever thought, how do they get away with some of the questions or how they could you imagine if you or I conducted a
No.
job interview like that?
No.
There would be some sort of labor claim the next day. You
can't
ever
do it.
think about
No.
this?
Look, I don't. Maybe the question. Maybe it changed. It is like a job interview, but not really. I mean, it's
I know, but you have 32 companies that
Yeah.
are looking to hire you as a W-2 employee. Just saying.
Yeah. Yeah, they definitely know. I mean, I remember going into, I think it was the Jets, and they walked in and they spent the time to take a clip of all of my bad plays and then
This
play
had
them.
to have been like Rex Ryan, right?
I don't think it was even Rex. Well, yeah, maybe he was in the room.
Of course it
And
was the Ryans.
And I was like, I'm saying to myself, you guys spent this long just to cut up all these bad plays over my years at USC just to talk about them at this particular time for the 15 minutes we have together.
And it almost like speaks to the culture of
Yeah,
that program.
I get it. Yeah,
That's funny.
yeah.
What was probably the most memorable interview you had? It doesn't have to be a bad one. You're at the combine, or you're doing visits to the teams.
The most I don't know that. The funniest thing is I remember interviewing with the Eagles, the team I went through. I remember my offensive line coach Juan Castillo being so argumentative or cold during the interview.
Looking back, and you probably got to know him. Was that a strategy of his?
I think that was a strategy of his. I think he was trying to see how tough I was and how I was going to react to it. They ended up drafting me, but I ended up we end up having the best relationship. Like we went through some hard times. I mean, hard times of like.
Well, I'm going to ask you about one in a second.
Yeah. Okay. So I won't ruin it.
Because so Howie Roseman was the GM.
Howie Roseman was the GM.
Yeah. What was draft day like? I mean, what did you? Because I'm certain I could be making this up. Like it was, you probably go first round, maybe second round. You end up going second round. Like how was that? On draft day, especially back then, I think they had the first round just on its own day, right?
The first and second round was day one.
Okay, that was after where it was just the first day, and then if you missed the first round, you had to like sit there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, but how was that experience like? You wake up, you're like, okay, here we go.
That I wake up excited.
You had no idea where you're going?
No idea where I was going.
If you had to guess on the morning of, what did you think was going to happen?
I would have went 12 to 14.
In the first round?
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
And what team did you think?
It was like Buffalo at 8 or Eagles at 14. There's no way you'll go past the Eagles. There's no way. And so I wake up, I'm excited.
Technically, you didn't, but just the wrong
technically,
round.
You're right. But it didn't work out that way. It was a tough day.
Yeah.
It was real tough. And I know like when people might say, but you went second round, you were 39, you were the second tackle taken. But like it's a totally different I was hurt.
Elon Musk, I saw him tweet, happiness equals expectations minus reality.
Yeah. And when your expectations it was tough.
Yeah.
And it was a real tough day. Like it was.
How much of that toughness was disappointment, shame, anger of just dropping versus the reality that every time you drop a pick, you're making less money?
It was all that combination.
Yeah,
one, you had that fear come in, now it's the fear of being poor, then you have the fear of shame. You know, you always have shame when you have some character issues, and then it's being shown now, like you're dropping the draft, and then also you put so much work into something and then have your work not being valued. It's a really tough time. Now looking back on it, look, in life sometimes you're not going to get what you think you should get, or it doesn't work out the way you want sometime, and you still need to attack that problem and learn from it. That was really tough to do. That was really hard to do, and I used that to get better.
So you got drafted second round to the Eagles. Mm-hmm. For the audience, my younger brother Casey was after you.
He's after you. I think like 3 years after.
Yeah, so he got drafted, Howie Roseman, to the Eagles. So you guys got to know each other then. How was your rookie year? Like how was it being in the league and being this NFL player? And even though it's second round money, having $1 million wired to your bank account.
It was tough. That's first year was tough too. I mean, I know but you probably tally of how much times I say tough. It was hard. It was adjustment. The NFL was a lot different than USC. The competitiveness was at a different level because at USC you could look on the schedule and see, this person is going to be good, this person is going to be good. With the Eagles, I mean, the third string on the team is like the best at their program at one point in time. And so the level of competition was at a different level. The level of learning the offense was at a different level. The competition within offensive line rooms was at a different level because if you don't perform, you're like out. You're going back home, or you're
fired.
Yeah. Whereas college, I mean, you're fired, but like you're still on the team. It's not like they won't like kick you out. I mean, maybe they wouldn't. I'm not sure, but they're not going to kick you out. NFL, they kick you out, and so there's a level of expectation and seriousness and finality that wasn't there beforehand.
Did you start your rookie year, or was it you were developed?
I was developed. I mean, I played here and there, but I played behind Trey Thomas and John Runyon.
And those are pretty good players.
Yeah, they're pretty good players.
John Runyon is a huge
John
man.
Runyon, yeah. And then Sean Andrews was on that team. I can't think of the other players that was on that team too, but I was developed, but I still played, and I had a really awesome coach in Juan Castillo that really poured a lot into my game. Before
diving into your career and kind of how it evolved, what was it? I know it wasn't the first round money, but I wanted to circle back to this question. Like, what was it like for the first time having a lot of money? And how did it measure up to your expectations?
You know, it's a difference between a lot of money than a lot of money.
I know, but
You always want. Did it reach my expectations? No, because $1 million isn't really $1 million.
it's a lot less. But but it's more than getting paid to be a smoker in a
Oh,
boxing
yeah.
gym. Okay.
Yeah.
Like
your problems are different, right? You don't have to worry about like, hey, how much am I spending at a grocery store? But like, you still could spend it easy,
Yeah.
right? It's just you have different type of relation
hey,
to it.
we could do a whole podcast on our teammates from SC. You know, in terms of where they got drafted and probably don't have much money left. But yeah, it goes fast, especially when you're surrounded by people who are blowing money. And if they're not on the rookie contract, they probably have more than you. But there's that natural hedonic treadmill where it's like you're just trying to keep up with everyone else.
Yeah, and then also back then most players are the first ones that came into substantial wealth for their families, and so when that happens, you have to take care of a lot of people.
Did you have that?
I did to a point, but you had to come to a very real conversation with your community or whatever you call it. That hey, I can't afford it.
Yeah.
You can't. I mean, you can't afford taking care of 20
Was that something
people.
you had a lot of grandmas, grandpas, cousins coming at you like, hey, Winston, you make it, we all make it?
I think anybody, entrepreneur, business owner that has come into substantial wealth, and you're the first one in your family that does it, there is a sense of you taking care of everyone, and there's a point where you can do it. I still do it now, but it can't be to the point where you are taking care of everyone. That doesn't do the best thing for you because you have to make an immense amount of money to take care of 30 people, 40 people. But it does also, it's not the best thing for your family either, or whoever you're taking care of.
And but did you experience that if you don't, for all the reasons you laid out, which are valid and defendable, that it leads to resentment from other people?
It's going to lead to resentment either way because you can never make everyone happy. I think it leads to resentment either way. I think coming into substantial wealth leads to resentment, and that's something as a family, or if you choose to be in a relationship with someone, it's something you need to talk through. Especially if you're a young person building a family. I think your first goal is to make sure your wife and your kids are taken care of. Then outside of that, of your surplus, that's when you can take care of family members. But your first duty is your family.
Yeah.
Right. It's that. And having the conversation is like a hard one, but it's something that needs to be had. But I do think the athlete is becoming more sophisticated. The families are becoming more sophisticated than they were in
Which is good.
the past. So those conversations are changing.
As I say, the financial literacy of athletes is improving, which is a good thing. I think yesterday was like Mamba Day. Kobe Bryant was like 8-24-24 or something like that. He had that issue with his parents, I think. Another USC offense tackle. I don't know him personally. I met him once or twice. You know Tyron Smith?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great player.
Yeah.
My understanding is it was a major, major issue in his family, like to the point like he had to get a restraining order or something against his parents.
Yeah.
They were, like trying to come at him so aggressively. I don't know if I don't want to repeat something that I'm not factually correct in, but yeah, it's I've seen it. You know, obviously, in my family we're blessed not to have that issue, but you see it in athletics specifically all the time.
Yeah, I think it's tough. I mean, it's tough to have this conversation because you feel a need to do that, and you feel a need to take care of everyone.
Do you feel guilt?
You do feel guilt. Yeah, you do. You feel a need to do it. You feel like you need to.
I mean, you worked hard, of course, but you're also 6'6", 320 pound gifted athlete, and it's like, well, you know, I was blessed with this. Maybe it is my responsibility.
You feel like a responsibility. You know, most athletes in football don't like conflict, right? I mean, you're in a very conflicting sport. You hit people and stuff, but they don't really like conflict. I don't really like conflict. I just happen to always be surrounded by it.
Yeah.
But I want to make people around me happy.
Mm-hmm.
But in doing so, you end up not accomplishing what you're trying to do anyway.
You put yourself in a position to be unhappy.
Yeah.
All right. So I actually remember this, not just because, you know, we see each other. I remember sitting watching a game. I don't know if it was a Monday night or a Sunday night game. It was against the Giants. Mm-hmm. and maybe it was your second year then, if it wasn't your first. I want to say Strahan, and you gave up a lot of sacks. And I was sitting there watching because we had been teammates, and I liked you as much as I could for an offensive player. Sure, I threw a punch at you once or twice, but only because we had helmets on and gear, and I knew it'd be broken up, right?
Yeah. so break it up.
Yeah, because if someone didn't break it up, I'd be in trouble. But what happened in that game? I remember it was really tough, and clearly you bounced back, which a lot of people don't do, and had a very successful long run in the NFL. Like, walk the audience through what happened, the adversity you faced, and how you overcame it.
Yeah. So first year, first start, it was again, I'm gonna say it again. It was a really tough learning lesson. It was, at USC, I don't think I even gave up a sack. But this first game I started, I gave up 4.
This is your rookie year?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gave up 4. And it should have been more because I got a couple hits on the quarterback too as well. I think some people thought it was like 8 or 6. It wasn't that. It was 4. And it was tough because, they all came – the first one happened right before the second half. Do you know before second half when you're down, you go 2 minutes, it's like back-to-back passes.
Yeah.
That's when I got beat off the ball by Umanura, OC Umanura.
He was a great player.
Yeah, and one thing he did was he got off the ball really fast, and that was the first time really in the game I was doing silent count. Silent count when you go off the center. And so I was slow off the ball.
Because you have to look at the ball, right?
You have to look at the center, and then as soon as the center moves his head a certain way, then you leave, right? And so I didn't get that timing down yet, but OC did get that timing.
Yeah.
And
he was a vet.
Yeah, and he got the timing. It was a rough game, and it was hard to get over that first sack, and it was hard to give a second one and third and the fourth. And I remember one sack. I think Strahan got a sack, and I remember him getting up and saying, "You ain't ready. You ain't ready."
It was more like, "You ain't ready. You ain't ready."
Yeah, and that was hard. And I remember after the game, and this is after the bad draft, right? Mm-hmm. This was after this. I remember after the game, I'm sitting in the bus, and I had my head down in a dark bus. And when you have a bad game, like no one sits next to you, and you have my head down in the dark bus. And I remember I started to cry because I felt like I was all alone. I felt like I let everyone down, right?
Yeah.
And I felt like I was all alone and like I had no backup plan. But Juan Castillo sat next to me, right?
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, he sat next to me and said, "Hey, man, Juan Castillo is like first Mexican offensive line coach, right? And he has a really thick like accent. He was like, "Hey, man, all right, we're gonna get through this, man. All right, we're gonna get better. We're gonna work through it." And he put his arm around me, which is really odd, right? I felt kind of uncomfortable at first, like
you're a football player.
I'm like, what?
What are you doing?
His arm around me, and then but then I felt, even though it was bad, right? All this, it was on ESPN. It was bad. I didn't watch it. It was horrible. It was so bad.
I remember it. Oh, but the only reason I remember it is because I played with you. I was like, oh, fuck,
yeah.
Like I felt bad for you.
Yeah. And I remember I didn't want to go to work the next day. You still go to work.
Got to go to work.
And then on top of that, right? This is really hard. We had to watch the whole film as a team. And so all your teammates had to watch it. And
how were they?
After that game, actually, I remember going up to Donovan and apologizing. And I said, "I'm going to get better."
Donovan McNabb?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because look, I could complain and say, "Look, I never did silent count before in the game, and you should have prepared me better." But it wasn't. I could have prepared myself better for that. But then I was like, "Hey, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to get beat off the ball like that again."
How was he? Was he like, "Sure, kid," or was he was good?
No, he look, Donovan's been in games when he threw six picks. I mean, he understood that was hard. And he didn't vilify me. He didn't say, he said, "All right, I believe you." Then I went up to the officer coordinator and apologized too and said, "Look, I'm going to get better at this. Today was bad, but I'm going to get better." And so we watched the film as a team. That was hard too. Nothing's worse than watching film after a bad game. But every day after practice, I worked at it and I got better. And so it was a turning point in my career that I didn't want that to happen again.
Donovan was a cool guy.
Yeah, Donovan was a good guy.
Oh, the reason I ask, so this is, man, I could talk for 3 hours. Yeah, you just asked me like, hey man, you got to hurry up. We were at the Pro Bowl. I think my brother Clay was a rookie, so he just made it. And we go to, it was Miami that year, so it was me, Clay, and Casey, the Matthews boys, and we're by the pool. But we knew the NFL tradition, like you do not give anyone your room number because they'll put the drinks on your tab.
Yeah.
We knew that because my dad, my uncle, it was just known. Well, the rookies didn't know that. And I remember Peyton Manning got Eric Berry's number, like, room 1103, last name Berry, right? And because Eric didn't know this is a tradition. So then he gave it to some of the quarterbacks. So we're by the pool with Donovan McNabb and some of his guys. He ordered like $20,000 of drinks and put it on Eric Berry's. I thought he was the coolest guy in the world. I felt bad for Eric Berry, who was a phenomenal safety. But yeah, I got to hang out with him a little bit, and he was fun. He had a great personality. Like, he was laughing the whole time. So I could see him being a cool guy. But whenever you say Don McNabb, I just start smiling. I was like, man, just make sure he never gets your room number.
He's funny, and he makes jokes too. But at points like that, he when you're in the battle with somebody, like, we work together then too. So
all right, so you overcame this adversity. You worked on it. Practice. Yeah. You eventually figured out the silent count. But let me just kind of like summarize. Like, you just got better as a player. When did you become a full-time starter?
Going into my second year, third year, and fourth year.
And fast forward, you ended up clearly developing into a player that was offered, which is a big thing in the NFL, a second contract.
Yeah.
Right? That tends to come with a chunkier amount of compensation. How was that moment?
It was a good day, good year. That season was great. It happened in the end of 2009. It lifted some anxiety that had, because even though you signed a contract, I don't know how much the first contract was, but it was still second round contract. It wasn't like life changing money.
No.
You still had to work for it, right? This did lift some anxiety, but you still needed to perform to show that you're worth that.
Yeah, I guess the expectations are higher.
Yeah.
And did you find your play improved with the contract? Like, was it just a mentality thing where it switched? Like, okay, if they're going to pay me this much, I need to be that guy?
No, I think the mentality stayed the same, right? I still did the same thing. I worked the same way. There's some changes I need to make. I still did it, but at the same time, though, I was still, football for me was always a stepping stone to do something different. It opened up so many doors that normally wouldn't be open to a kid from Long Beach, California. And I didn't want that to just be the best time of my life. Right?
That's a very unique perspective for a football player.
Yeah.
Most football players, they never think beyond that. We've talked before about just the challenges players have in transitioning out of being a player. And my opinion's always been it's because they get confused, and understandably so, that their value is what they do, not who they are, right? And when what they do is taken away, injury, or just like eventually we were all too old to play football.
Yeah,
they're like, well, what's my value? Like, well, who am I? And they don't know how to answer that question. Why do you think, even at a young age, you didn't have that same issue?
One, I think it started off in fear. I didn't want to go back to the kid from Long Beach, California that stuttered, that was overweight, that was dyslexic, that grew up poor with only one pair of shoes a year. I didn't want that to be my reality going forward, even though that kind of built me to where I'm at now at the same time. Sure. I didn't want that, but it kind of built me to do it. So it was that, and then I was an NFL rep for the Eagles.
That was gonna say, like, I think you're gonna steal my question. It was clearly you had this. This isn't just like you saying, hey, this was how my mind was working. I didn't want this to be the highlight, because you actually went out and did something that only one person on a team in theory gets to do. And my guess is half of them don't begrudgingly choose it. The NFLPA rep for the Eagles, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, and that's
Players Association for the audience.
Yeah, and you're voted to the team. The teammates vote you. The team captain.
Was that something you campaigned for? Like, hey guys, I'm running for office, or
no,
was it?
It's something they nominate, and I was very honored to be nominated.
Why do you think you were nominated? In your humble opinion,
I think someone that could hold a sentence.
Yeah.
That somewhat, thought about life bigger than just playing. That's it. Someone that called the sentence. They're like, let's just nominate Winston.
Yeah.
And
was this something you had to accept, or were you like, I guess I got to do it?
I think you could deny it.
Like, were you excited about it?
I was excited. I wasn't thinking about it, but when they nominated me, every time you get nominated for something, you're like, maybe I should be a leader. Maybe I should do that, and I did. It was great. It was an awesome experience. But during that experience, what I was going to say is that the retired players came back. And they have awesome stories, right? I think they have awesome stories. They played with the Raiders with a broken leg and awesome war stories. But that was it. I mean, it was just that. And I think those war stories are great, but I wanted like other war stories that were outside of football too.
Yeah.
I just wanted more war stories. I wanted more stories, just not in football, right? And so I started that when I was playing with the Eagles. I wanted to hit the ground running. I didn't want to have a long lull of period where I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I wanted to figure out.
And was the NFLPA, that was like kind of your first foray into flexing your mind as much as your body, the muscle as a football player, but the muscle in your head as a intellectual, which eventually led you into being a businessman? Was that kind of the first?
I think it started there. One thing I also did, I reached out to every successful player that was more successful after they were playing than during. That kind of started flex my muscle too. I also reached out to a lot of, private equity managers that are really successful, CEOs. I wanted to see how they viewed the world too as well, because I knew that they'll take my call when I was playing.
Well, of course, yeah.
When you stop playing,
it's harder.
I just thought like maybe they won't take my call then, right? And so I tried to reach out as much people while I was playing, because I knew that it would drastically fall off when I was not.
Yeah, that's a mature thought that, again, as an athlete, you just probably don't think of as much when you're there, at least most of the players.
Yeah.
While there, and maybe this was around the time NFLPA, you were voted, was a Walter Payton Man of the Year. That was for the Eagles?
That's for the Eagles. Yeah. I wanted to also give back to the community that I was blessed to be in as much as possible.
What was your cause?
My cause, it was like many causes. I always wanted to. I grew up going to YMCA's and Boys and Girls Clubs. That's where I encountered my first mentors. Was through coaching. Now, look, they saw an athletic, chubby kid that could play, so they poured into me. But that still opened up a whole new world of possibilities that wouldn't be open to me. And so I wanted to give to things like that. And so every opportunity I had to give to the local YMCAs or Boys and Girls Clubs, I did.
So that was also mostly YMCA focused.
Yeah. Also, we did mission trips. I went on a mission trip to Haiti and also Africa, Indonesia. I wanted to give to kids that didn't have as much opportunity as we did in the United States. And so I went to Haiti right after the earthquake. Yeah. So we went and got some players, and we started an initiative called 300 Homes for Haiti.
What effect did that have on your perspective going to these places that, you sit there and like, well, in Long Beach, I was poorer, I didn't have this, and these were my motivations. But like when you go to other places outside the U.S., did it give you even more perspective?
Huge perspective.
Yeah.
Opportunity. I grew up poor in Long Beach. I wasn't the poorest, but I could tell that I was poor. But I still had opportunity. And that's what we have in the United States is opportunity, whereas other countries you don't. And so, things aren't perfect here. It's not. Well, it should be better, right? But the reality is that we have so much opportunity in this country. We just need to grasp it.
I want to move this conversation to the end of your career and kind of, again, making that transition to being a full-time financial professional as opposed to full-time NFL professional. When did you know your playing days were coming to an end?
So when you stop playing, it's not like, hey, you do a press conference and then, well, maybe for some players. It wasn't for me. I thought I could play, but no one else thought so. And so I remember failing a physical. Actually, I felt physical for Titans. I felt it for Detroit.
What was it, a knee, shoulder?
It was knee and shoulder.
Oh, okay,
it was both.
Yeah.
And I remember feeling physical after my third one. I felt the physical for the Cardinals. I felt the physical Cardinals on a Thursday. And I remember starting at Wells Fargo as associate on a Tuesday.
Oh, wow.
I started right away.
Was this after you got your master's?
This after, yeah.
Okay.
This after I got master's. I got my master's when I was with the Eagles.
Oh, you did?
In finance, yeah. And
how did you do? Did you do that in the off season?
I did in off season.
So
yeah.
would you just take the train down to GW?
I took the train down the
Yeah.
I took the train down the GW. First, it was with me and my wife, and then, well, me and my wife and my son, and we all went down there. It was the first time I really enjoyed school. Was actually
How'd you do
that
it? Like
experience.
you enjoyed that experience?
It was great. It was
Yeah.
awesome. I actually had a relationship with the professors. I was doing something that
Were they
I
like,
had.
were they like, who is this guy? He's huge, and you play in the NFL. Why are you here?
I never got that.
No?
It was very much. It wasn't why you're here. It was like, it's great that you're here.
That's very cool. Yeah.
It's good that you're here. I was like, it's very welcoming. It was great, and they're really it was the best experience I had in school.
How do you get into GW Masters in Business, right?
Yeah.
As an NFL player, you haven't been to school in a couple of years. Your GPA at SC was like probably,
It wasn't that good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's an assumption, but yeah. Like, how do you get in there? Or is it just because you're such a unique candidate? They're like, man, we got to let him in.
To be honest, I think it was the uniqueness
Yeah.
that was it.
Sure. I mean, it's a great
apply?
story.
And I got in. I applied to other schools and they did not.
I was going to say,
value
you
the
should have went to
uniqueness.
Wharton. It was right down the street, you know?
Wharton said no, but it was a good experience.
Who's the owner of the Eagles? Jacob Lurie?
Yeah, Lori. Why am I missing?
Anyway, you should ask,
Yeah.
like, where did he go to school? Just like, hey, get me in there. But no,
Yeah.
GW is a great
I don't
school.
know where he went to school.
It's a great school.
Yeah.
My wife's uncle, Uncle Tim, went there. He played basketball there. And,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, and I lived in Georgetown, so I used to go by the school all the time. It was a
Yeah.
fantastic location, super cool. And so you really enjoyed it.
I did.
And this is
I did.
part of your evolution into saying, hey, like football's great, and I'll try and play until the doctors won't pass me. But
Yeah.
you got your master's. You knew you wanted to go into business.
I knew I wanted to go into business. I started a small VC fund when I was playing with
Yeah.
Jamal Mashburn. I realized I didn't want to be in the private side of it. Started a chain of coffee shops where are still open today.
Yeah,
Elixir Coffee. Yeah.
Yeah. How many?
We just opened up in the Philadelphia airport. So that's our 9th location.
Wow.
And that's something that I started back in 2010. I thought I wanted to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Still is. I mean,
Yeah.
I still am.
There's pluses and minuses.
Yeah. But really got into finance when I was associate at Wells Fargo.
So you what are you doing at Wells when you start there?
I am preparing decks. I am.
So they
doing
had
trades.
they had you start at the bottom.
Oh, it was about. Now there I got. Why are you here? Like, what do you? I mean,
Yeah, what are you doing?
Oldest guy here. Like, what are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
you know.
And it was was it just to get your foot in the door and start learning?
It was just to get my foot in the door, to learn, and to not just not to be at home. You also need to get licenses too, as well. It's a way to do it too, as well.
As a financial advisor.
Yeah, you need anything in finance.
banking, yeah.
You need 7, 66, 63.
And so you were studying to
get
get those, and you said
studying to get those.
might as well learn.
Yeah, studying some accreditations, right? It was.
And where were you at the time?
I was
physically?
in Naples, Florida. So
Naples, Florida, okay.
yeah, it was a long-only strategy based in Naples, and it was very much so it was a learning job.
Yeah.
I had to learn a lot. Yeah, and then from there I was recruited to be a portfolio manager of a fund of funds based in Santa Monica, Pacific Income
And what was
Advisors.
that? What was the company there?
It's called Pacific Income Advisors.
And you went and did that?
I went.
So you're in Santa Monica working at a fund manager. What year is this?
That was 2016.
And you're out
17.
of the league. You're kind of
Out of the league.
and
Totally out.
I'm about to close the door on close the chapter on your NFL playing days. What was the moment where you said, okay, like this is done, like it's over? Was it that last third physical?
No, when I was at Wells Fargo, because I told Wells Fargo if I get called from a team,
Gotta go.
I'm like out of here,
Yeah.
right? And it was in the middle of the season, and I wasn't getting any calls. And I was like, this is it. This is it. And it was kind of a sad feeling because I'm just in like a open like desk seating area. It wasn't like some fancy office.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
Welcome.
it was like
Come down here with the commoners, baby.
And it felt like, oh, this is it. And all right, I'm gonna make this work.
Was there like a moment of? I mean, I know there's a moment of it. Were there moments that was hard and you were like, no, like, because again, we've talked about so many of our teammates. That to this day, they still can't let it go.
Yeah. I think it was hard for the first year or 2 years. It was hard. It was hard for me to watch a game because I felt like I did
play.
it. Then also you feel like, man, did I leave some on the table? Like, could I still be playing now? But then you can't go down that road.
No.
You can't say, well, you can't go back. All you can do is now, hey, I'm going to cherish every moment I have now, even though it's not perfect. Even though that time at Wells Fargo was hard, I was making decks for other people to present, doing analysis. I'm going to cherish this time now because I know I'm learning something now that is going to be beneficial for me later on.
Why do you think you had that mentality and most of your teammates didn't?
I think because I experienced so much loss. I mean, I'm just realizing this now when I'm talking to you.
There you go. Hey.
It's like, you lose so much. You're like, well, man, you could learn so much in the losses, right? Losses of, not being highly recruited, but then being recruited. Then, the suspension at USC, then from the bad game, then from, struggling the first couple of years, and then some triumph for the new contract, but then getting traded, and then going through that, and then, failing physicals, and then starting. I learned so much in those depths of those valleys. That helps me. Now it helps those war stories, right?
Yeah.
I get to have those war stories that could help someone or help me.
How was getting traded? You got traded from the Eagles to the Colts. How was that? You just get a call and like, hey, come to the office?
No, I got a call. I kind of knew the writing was on the wall. I was injured. Came back, struggled against your brother. Right?
Clay?
Yeah.
What year was this?
That was 2010 playoffs. And
how was it go against that guy? If you say anything good, we're going to cut it. I don't want him to get an ego.
He had a motor.
Yeah.
So some guys you could, if you don't block him until the whistle, they'll stop. They'll stop before you.
Yeah, if their first rush doesn't move, they're like, okay, didn't work.
Like, all right,
and
they'll rush it, and then they'll make it look good. Your brother wasn't like that.
He goes hard.
He'll keep going.
I remember it was the first game of the year, not even the playoffs, and he was coming off his left side, your side, and he goes to dip on you, and you punch right into his face.
Yeah.
And like it's like getting hit in the face. Now he has a helmet on, but his helmet pops up halfway.
Yeah.
And he just kept going.
Yeah.
And Cobb rolls out to his left.
Yeah.
And Clay runs him down, tackles him, gets a sack. And Cobb hits his head on the ground, gets a concussion, and Michael Vick steps in. Yeah, I think Clay had 3 sacks that game, but I don't think there were. I think a lot of them are on these. He was really good, amongst many things. Is like jab step outside, come up underneath the stunt where the tackles.
The stunts inside, yeah.
Yeah, and he would stunt inside, and he was really good at that.
I remember that. I remember that first game. He wasn't a rookie then, but I think
I think it was his sophomore year.
Yeah, but the game I was talking about was a year afterwards. Yeah. It was in playoffs. I was coming off an injury. It was a tough game. And
that year they ended up playing you guys in the playoffs at home, and they ended up winning the Super Bowl that year.
Yeah, maybe it was that year then.
Yeah.
But we played them twice.
You gotta watch out for those Matthews. See, I was beating you up in college.
I know, huh? I'm just. Yeah.
So you felt like you could be traded.
I felt like it was, and so back to your point. Andy Reid called me and said, "Hey, we're thinking about trading you. Like, what do you think?" He didn't need a call.
He's a sweetheart, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, nobody wants to be traded, but yeah, to your point, most coaches probably wouldn't tell you that.
Most coaches wouldn't, but I don't think he he wasn't like that with everyone. I think just I happened to be blessed with really coaches that really were patient. He called. He didn't need to call. And so he called. I said, yeah, and then I was traded to the Colts, which is awesome.
You had a good experience there?
Yeah, it was good.
Did you feel like your body, like you came back better with the Colts, or?
I came back better. It was a fresh start. I had Chuck Pagano as a coach.
Yeah.
It was good. It was good.
So you're at the Colts, Broncos, your career winds down, you're sitting at a cube in Wells Fargo. Oh man, I'm envisioning you at a cube at Wells Fargo.
I don't think it wasn't even a cube. It was like an open table. It was like with monitors. It was, yeah.
Well, you went on ours, like call station. That's all the new agents start in these little call stations. Then they graduate to a cube, and then ideally to a private office one day.
Exactly, yeah.
And man, I respect Wells Fargo for making you start from the bottom. They gave you any preferential treatment.
Not at all.
But how did you end up at AllianceBernstein?
So I was at the portfolio. I was at the hedge fund, and I didn't want to raise my kids in California, and so we had a house.
Why?
One, cost of living, schools weren't the best, and saying like the schools weren't the best, meaning that the values weren't the same type of values that me and my wife wanted at that particular time.
Did you steal that line from me?
No,
I say it all the time because like I get asked this question a lot, and I don't want to cast judgment on anyone who chooses to raise their kids there, because I'm sure there's literally millions of great kids in Southern California, but I just said the values were misaligned with what my wife and I wanted our kids to have.
Yeah, it was different, and then some people might go there and the values might align with them, and it works out great. It just, for us, it didn't work, and so we wanted to. This is a roundabout way. I'm going to get to the question.
Yeah,
I know we're coming up in time. We went to Hawaii. We had a house there, and
do you still have a house in Hawaii? Because I would like to visit.
No, and we try to make it there work. But if you're in Hawaii and you're at a hedge fund, it's not the most conducive
because you're waking up at like 3 a.m.
Yeah, and so that's when I started looking for opportunities on the mainland, and Bernstein called, and that's how I got the opportunity to work here. So we came here and worked in. And
they were moving their headquarters here. Was that?
They moved the headquarters down here to Nashville. So that was appealing, being part of that office, the opening up a new office. It felt more entrepreneurial. And the focus at Bernstein, working with smaller nonprofits and family offices, was something that wasn't a main focus for Bernstein. So I could be on the frontier, like tip of the spear there. And so I thought it was a good opportunity.
Yeah, I just walked by your guys' office on Fifth Avenue. Beautiful lobby and everything, but Nashville. What was the thought process? And I know you maybe weren't part of the decision making on Nashville for AllianceBernstein.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. I think the part of the thought process was simply, I think the lease was going to come up in New York, and so it was just cost. The cost was cheaper here. I think they looked at other places, Austin, Charlotte, Dallas, and they thought the most opportunistic place was going to be Nashville.
And so what are you focused on at AllianceBernstein today? Like what takes most of your time?
So I lead a team that manages assets for institutions, smaller ones, and family offices. And so we function as a chief investment officer for a smaller institution, like sub $300 million in investment.
So they give you money and you say, okay, let's put X% in this type of investment. Let's take this other bucket and invest it here.
So we partner and we manage assets to meet a certain financial goal or spend, and we use different financial strategies to do so. So we use a combination of bonds, stocks, and alternatives to meet a certain spend. So if an institution or a family has a 4% spend, like that's what we need to do in the portfolio to meet financial goals, we could create a portfolio that meets that spend with the least amount of risk.
And the goal is to not to touch the principal. Is that generally?
No,
like if they have $100 million and they say, hey, we want to make $4 million a year, you say, okay, 4%. Like that's the so that's going to be this weighted allocation into XYZ. Is that?
Yeah. You want to maintain principal.
Yeah.
So you want to maintain. So you'll be spending from the portfolio. So it's 4%. You'll be pulling from stocks and bonds. You're not using the yield.
Yeah.
But you want to maintain it.
And how did you learn and become, I would say an expert, or become astute in what investments to put in? It's like I think about like, did you go? Well, I guess you did. You went to GW, but
it's a long road.
Yeah.
Start off with venture capital, then it started off with
you technically started off in a cube. It was
a cube, yeah. And then learning the ins and outs of a business myself, being an entrepreneur. But then doing the analysis when I was at Wells Fargo, I had a long-only strategy, analyzing Fortune 500 companies, and then going to the hedge fund where my clients were institutions, larger ones, and being one of the managers in a bigger portfolio. And then from there, going to Bernstein, where you are the one, you're not a manager, you're not actually picking the stocks, but you're actually a portfolio.
You're picking
allocator.
the pickers, yeah.
Yeah, picking the pickers. Exactly.
That's right. And what does the future look like for Winston Justice in the finance world?
There's a lot of moving parts, and we're going to have to meet again to give everyone an update. But right now, there's a lot of moving parts, and
you got to start your own podcast, like Beyond Athletics, like how to how to grow and evolve past your playing days. A lot of people would listen to that.
Yeah, we're all good at certain things. We're all blessed with certain things. Being a podcaster is probably not.
No, natural. I mean, dude, you've done more interviews than probably almost anyone else you know, if I had to guess, right?
Yeah, being interviewed and then conducting the interviews.
How about the interview after that tough game you had for the Eagles? I mean, you can't just say, I'm not talking. I mean, maybe for a day or two, but it's coming, and you just got to take your medicine.
Those are tough interviews.
Yeah.
Interviews after a bad game are hard.
Especially because, my experience is most reporters are decent people, and even if they have to ask you a tough question, they frame it in a way that doesn't come up. But every now and then you get a reporter where it's just like, why did you blow that? Why did you you're like, oh, like I wanted to, it's called a mistake.
No, it's like you wake up in the morning, I want to have a bad game. No, it was a hard one, and also in Philly is different, meaning that you got
Philly
a lot
is
of
very different.
Justice, you suck, I'm like, I'm with my kids,
Dude, I was in the stands. In the stands, and they're yelling at my brother. They're yelling at my brother's wife. They figured out my brother's maybe fiance, then wife at the time, and like you said earlier, dude, I'm always down to get down. And so, you start talking, you always start talking shit to my family. Then, then all of a sudden it's, me versus 10 guys in Philly. And I like my odds, but if it's 20, it becomes a problem. Eventually I couldn't go to the games. It was too intense.
Yeah.
It was not a good place for me. But, I guess it prepares you for business, and business, you're like, if I can handle that, it's like, you make a mistake at work, you're like, well, I don't have to give a press conference tomorrow. That's a good thing.
No. Well, kind of sometimes.
And that's good. Well, I really appreciate you coming. Your story's fascinating, and on so many levels. I mean, obviously your upbringing in of itself, your story through USC, just developing so late into a player in high school. Like, I didn't know that. Because I knew you were like a 5-star recruit. I just remember, when you were coming in, like, oh, this guy, he's coming from Poly, and he's a #1 tackle in the nation, or whatever the rankings were saying. And then SC, having success, then, doing what young kids do sometimes and being stupid, and then coming back and having a great finish there other than Dan Vince Young. And, I mean, it just seems like your story is like, it's overcoming adversity and then taking ownership and responsibility. It's great. I love it. It's awesome having you here in Nashville. We gotta watch some Trojan games.
I know. Let's do it. Michigan game.
Well, you got to go. I think I got my hotel room. I got my tickets. I'm trying to think today. Anything else? No. Yeah. Let's do it.
You're on it.
Bring your kid.
I'm behind the 8 ball.
Can't thank you enough. It's going to be awesome to continue to watch you evolve and develop and grow in your new career.
Yeah, right? It's been a pleasure getting to know you since you moved. I mean, now, since you moved here,
as opposed to what you knew in college, which is like, fuck, I don't want to.
And also, I think you need to do a podcast like on yourself, right? I think you really built something extremely special, extremely unique. You built something. You actually built a legacy, and so I think everyone on this podcast could learn something. I could learn something. And I'll be tapping you actually to learn something in the next couple of months.
You know what we'll do? Yeah. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was done.
The SC team, especially since Lincoln Riley took over, they've done a good job reaching out to me to have me come back. And unfortunately, because I live here, I can't do most of them, but come back and talk to the team about not just focusing on your football career, but financial literacy and business and to your point, it's gotten better where they do a much better job getting athletes connected with the right financial advisors and all that. So just for your business, but I actually mean look, it's one thing to hire someone who's competent. That's good. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't also have some degree of competency in terms of investments and finance and all that. So
I agree.
you and I should do a trip out there together and give that speech, because it's always just me, talking to some kids and they're probably not listening. They're like, "Who's this guy?"
I'm pretty sure they're listening.
Well, one thing I don't do, I don't wear the Letterman jacket and bring the rings back. 'Cause, just because I was so judgmental when I was 20, I was like, "Who is this guy? And why is he talking?"
Yeah.
Move on.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy, but
I think players could sense something that you have something of value to say.
Yeah. Well, same to you. This has been great, man. We ran long on this one. That's when it's a good one. But Winston, I look forward to hanging. And thanks again.
I appreciate it.
All
right.
Let's get down to business. Give you one more night to get this. We've had a million nights just like this. So let's get down to business.